So, hello everybody. So, really sorry for the technical difficulties. Sometimes computers decide not to work, but yeah, I guess we can finally start. So I think I can mhm, I can just quickly um introduce yeah, our project and what is it about. Um yeah. Uh, So I know most of you maybe have entered our webinars before. So it's just like a quick overview of what Memory Makers does and what the project is about. So it's funded by EU's CRV program. It engages young people across Europe to explore overlooked histories from LGBTQ plus and disabled communities to Roma and Sinti experiences, especially during the Holocaust, by turning participants into storytellers and change makers. Um, yeah. Also, our webinar series, Digital Frontiers, Youth Strategies for Inclusive Narratives. So, what happens when young voices use digital tools to receive forgotten stories? So, Digital Frontiers is a four-part webinar series empowering young people to reshape how history is told. Through expert-led sessions, participants will learn to create impactful digital narratives and adapt archives with care, uncover silent histories, and use social media for change. And I think I can just also introduce our speaker for today, which is Carolina Vilkeliana. She's a researcher and cultural heritage professional at the Ninth Forest Museum in Kaunas, Lithuania, where she explores innovative ways to preserve and present memory through digital storytelling. And about the Ninth Fort Museum. So it's part of the Kaunas Ninth Fort Memorial Complex, a site of remembrance dedicated to the victims of World War II and the Soviet occupation. The museum combines history, memory, and education, offering powerful insights into Lithuania's 20th century past and its contemporary approaches to the remembrance. And yeah, so I think I can just give the stage to our speaker of today. And yeah, floor is yours, Carolina.
Okay, hello. I hope that you can see and hear me. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. So I will try to share my screen so that you could see my slides. Okay, I hope you can see that. Hold on. Okay, I hope you can see my slides. So thank you for presentation. And yes, my name is Carolina. I work as a digital content creator at Kaunas 9 Fort Museum. And first of all, I will shortly introduce Kaunas 9 Fort Museum, which is actually a place, as you probably understood from the presentation, it's a place marked by a deeply difficult and painful history. And after a short introduction of the museum, I will present how we as a museum try to communicate that history through social media using various forms. So to begin with, Kaunas 9 Fort was originally built before the First World War. It was a part of Kaunas fortress, which was a large defensive complex built by the Russian Empire on the western border of the empire. So the idea was to protect the western border with this fortress. So during the war, it had no damage. The war never happened at the fort. Therefore, as soon as the First World War ended and Lithuania gained its independence, the fort was turned into Kaunas hard labor prison in 1924, to be exact. Why that happened? This happened because there was not enough space for prisoners in Kaunas main prison. So the military barracks of the Ninth Fort, where soldiers used to live at, were turned into prison cells. And in 1940, the Soviet Union occupied Lithuania for the first time, and they began deporting Lithuanians, mainly intellectuals, into forced labor camps, mainly to Siberia. So they chose to use Nine Fort as a transfer point. What this means is that people, before being deported to Siberia, they were interrogated, kept at the Ninth Fort for a short period of time, and from there they were deported to camps in Siberia. The most tragic chapter of the Ninth Fort actually began in 1941 during Nazi occupation of Lithuania, and the Ninth Fort became one of the biggest mass murder sites in Lithuania. So the situation in Lithuania was tragic at the time because, and as soon as the Nazi occupation began, they began murdering people from day one. And why they chose 9/4 is because this object was a little further away from the city center. It already had prison cells from the prison that was there before. So during 3 years of Nazi occupation, at the 9/4, there were around 50,000 people murdered. Not inside of the fort, not in the object, but next to the fort, there's a field. In my photo on the slide, you can see that green grass with memorial plaques. So it's only a small part of the mass murder site. So this is where those mass killings took place. And the majority from the people of the people that were murdered there were Jews, as well as Lithuanians, Poles, Russians, and of course other nationalities. Later, there was the second Soviet occupation of Lithuania, and there was a decision made in 1959 to actually open a museum at the fort, but the museum actually presented a narrative shaped by Soviet ideology, focusing heavily on Nazi crimes while omitting or distorting other parts of history. And first exhibitions included like terrible, disturbing displays, such as human remains like bones or hair of the murdered people. And some people actually who visited the museum during the Soviet era, they were traumatized by what they saw there. And even up to this day, these people who remember visiting the museum in their childhood, they never want to return to the fort, even though it changed a lot from those times. And sometimes we hear people saying, well, the older ones, we hear them saying that while I'm passing by the fort, I look away because I cannot look there. So also during Soviet era, in 1984, it was decided to build a memorial complex, and the memorial complex consisted of a huge monument dedicated to the victims of Nazism. So you can see in my photo the monument from the side. Also, probably you saw in the previous photo the huge monument consisting of three parts from the front. So memorial complex consists of this monument. Then there was museum's administration building built, and huge park with another new building for exhibitions. So when Lithuania actually regained its independence in 1990, the museum uh, began to change completely. We as a museum began presenting a more complete and truthful history, addressing not only the Nazi crimes, but also the Soviet repressions. We started to talk about everything and not hide any of the facts of history that happened here. And another interesting thing is that during Soviet era, uh, they wanted to make Nazis look as bad as possible. So not far away from the mass murder field, they built a memorial like plaque which said 100,000 people of the Soviet Union were murdered here. So what you can hear is the number is twice bigger than the actual number. And another thing is that you can hear from it the citizens, the people of the Soviet Union, but we cannot hear who they were, if they were Jews, Lithuanians, and others. So there was a lot of work to do when we finally got our independence, and we still are working on how to say on attracting the people who visited the museum back in the day to actually come visit museum uh, today, because the ones who visited back in the day, they just heard one side of the story and uh, one short period of history, and we want to share more of the things with them. What else? So we also changed our approach to exhibitions, which is also very important. So we moved away from traumatic imagery and focused instead on educational, respectful, and human-centered storytelling. And our goal is to create a space that invites reflection, understanding, without traumatizing people. So we don't want to traumatize visitors. And as I said, it's really difficult to it's a difficult place, and it's difficult to attract people because from what you probably understand, the Ninth Fort is not a place that probably you would like to visit while you're on holiday, while you're enjoying your holidays. It's a difficult place and it's difficult to attract people to come, but it's important to do that because it's important to learn history and see what some of the human actions can lead to. So what do we do to attract our audience? So first of all, we do various temporary exhibitions. So on the top left corner, you can see one of our newest exhibitions by Lithuanian artists who chose to tell the story through the use of shoes. So we are trying to use various forms to speak about history in interesting ways in our museum. Other things that we do is, of course, conferences and educational events. They bring together not only historians and researchers, but also the public. We always try to invite the public and not do private conferences. On the top right corner, you can see that we also do cultural evenings, cultural events. They include actually musical and poetry performances, theater or dance performances. So we are trying to look for various forms of events to attract as wider audience as possible. And in the photo, you can see uh, our, well, probably today I can say our biggest event of the museum, which is called the Garden of June. And it's being organized annually in the month of June. And it's actually a sad day for such event. We gather on the day during which we commemorate the deportations of Lithuanian people. But we gather, as you can see, not to cry, but to learn, to educate ourselves, to remember, and to just be grateful for what we have today and not let things, repeat itself. Other things we do, uh, public events beyond the walls of the museum. So sometimes to reach a broader, wider audience, we leave the museum. We go to different, I don't know, cities, places, and we try to uh, include various audiences. For example, on the bottom middle photo, you can see a photo from a train. So sometimes we jump even on trains, and I will talk about what happened here a little later. But we use like different ideas, like whatever comes up to our mind, like let's go to the, I don't know, cultural fair. Let's go find people there to talk about history. Let's jump on a train and so on. So we are trying to go out of the museum also. And another thing that we do is that we constantly are filling up our collections, but we are not uh, hiding the exhibits that we get or testimonies that we also like record, but we try to share everything with public also in various ways. And I will talk about these ways in a minute. So uh, Kaunas Nine Fort Museum tells a story of totalitarian regimes, genocide, deportation, and human rights violations. These themes are not just historical, but these themes are deeply relevant today. And across the world, we continue to see the rise of disinformation, attacks on human dignity. This is why it is important to talk about history. And social media is one of our biggest, not the biggest, but one of the most powerful tools that we have to reach our audiences, especially the younger generations. And we use formats that are respectful, historically accurate, of course, also emotionally intelligent, visually engaging, but of course, nothing ever is like sensational. And of course, it has to be interactive to foster connection and reflection. We aim to create a digital space that is like where the history is not only remembered, but it is also understood, and a place where people can feel safe to reflect, to ask questions, and to learn, of course. And now I will present some of the forms that we use online. And one of the most popular forms of content creation online is Reels. And you can see a screenshot of our Facebook. And we can actually distinguish three main forms of Reels that we do. And as I said, I'm talking we, but actually the main person behind all these videos who films and edits is me as a digital creator. But of course, behind me, there's a huge group of people that help to do that, help to like prepare the information and other things. And now to go back to the three forms that I mentioned. So the first form of Reels that we use is where we have a narrator. So there is a person who is telling a story. The second form that we do is we have testimonies, stories of witnesses or survivors. And the third one is, it's called Restores Workshop. What does it mean? So we have at the museum our restorer Martinez, who not only restores specific items, objects, but he also shares the story behind each object and its way and on its way to the museum. So how it got to our museum. So these are the three main forms of Reels. And what other things that we do? So another form of content that we use online is showing archival photos or exhibits from our collections on commemorative days. So we have days that we commemorate online. For example, on the top left corner, you can see August 2nd, we commemorated the day of Roma genocide in Lithuania. So for that day, we used a photo of the Roma people from our collections. So we do these things. And as I mentioned earlier, the museum constantly is filling up its collections with various exhibits. And one of the ways to show the new exhibits to the public is the idea of having the so-called exhibit of the month. What does it mean? So each month, actually at the end of each month, on last Sunday of each month, we have a day where visitors can come to the museum for free. And during that day, we show them the exhibit of the month at the museum. And also we, as you can see from the photos, we also communicate about it online. So it's another way of showing us as many things that we have as possible. And we are always trying to look for different forums. I'm always trying to experiment to see what works and what not. And from what I see, I can tell for sure that the best results are with Reels. And people start discussing in the comments Some of them write about their families. They share their stories of their families, and with the reels we reach the biggest audience. And another important thing is that, as you can probably see from the screenshot, uh, reels with a narrator where there's a person perform better. So as you can see in the screenshot, uh, for example, from the top left, third and fourth reels, they don't include any people. Like those are just showing, those reels consist of just showing spaces of the museum, and they did not perform well. On the left, so the second from the left, you can see there is a person. Why the reel did not perform well? Because the person was not speaking. They were just we were just showing moments from the guided tour, but without talking. So from what I can say, the best is to communicate history through a narrator that tells a story. And from what I mentioned, of the different forms that I mentioned that we use in our social media, least successful are the exhibits of the month. And I think it's no surprise because it's just a photo. Well, of course, with a leading text about the exhibit, but it's just a photo. It does not catch the attention that well, like the reels do. And also, it's the thing that you can see on your visit to the museum. In the reels, you hear some kind of, I don't know, specific story that you probably cannot hear during your visit at the museum, during the guided tour, or it has to be like you asking some kind of facts. But yeah, I think you understood what I mean. It's the thing that you can see online and at the museum, so it does not perform that well. And what else I want to say is that the preparation for content creation is actually very careful because, as I said, we are a difficult place, a place where we have people who come to the museum and tell us like my relative or my family member lost their life there. So we have to be really careful to be respectful. So now I will share what do we do, what's the process behind all the preparation and from preparation to publishing of the content. So if we are talking specifically about reels, uh, we prepare a script. So in the photo, you can actually see my desk, my workplace, and there's a small paper and there's a script actually drawn there. And I prepare together with colleagues not only the text with the main points that we want to share in our reels, but also I prepare like visual script, like I draw a small person doing this or that, and this is how we get the idea of how the reel has to look like. And during filming process, we another thing, important thing is that during filming process, we also try to look for a tone of voice. So what I mean is that if we are talking about, I don't know, for example, the Holocaust, we are talking about people who lost their lives, we cannot have a very, funny, positive tone. But of course, it does not have to be too sad because the people don't watch that. So we are trying to pick what seems to be best for us at that time. And sometimes we even work on facial expressions. So again, so if we are talking about a difficult story or a moment of history, we cannot be laughing during reel. So we have to be respectful. And it's actually quite difficult to make it not too, I don't know, not too dramatically sad, but also not too dramatically positive. So it's a difficult mission for us. And when I film all the material, then there's the video editing. And again, you can always edit something in to make it more interesting, but it has to be with respect and not sensational. So uh, it it has to be without making entertainment out of a serious topic. And another point that you can see in my slide is music track selection. And yes, it's also very important because if you're talking about a difficult thing, the music track cannot be like, I don't know, too positive, too happy. It has to not overwhelm the narrator, but it has to create a specific mood which is appropriate for the reel. And the last thing is choosing a day to publish. And another important thing, why it's important. So we have a calendar and we always try to look for specific dates of history. So if there's a date from, I don't know, from the Holocaust period, we try to publish Holocaust related material on that day. And another thing is that why we have a calendar, so that we would mark for ourselves when we are publishing reels, so that there would be a mix of content, but not like, for example, 3 reels in a row, but we try to do reel, like a photo or something, another reel, and we try to mix it to make it more interesting for our audience. And what we tell in our social media uh, is based on historical facts, material, which are either collected from the witnesses, survivors, or recorded in historical sources. And those people, let's see, those people who work with digital content at the museum, so me and my amazing group of colleagues, we have the greatest responsibility, relying on our own morality and our own understanding of ethics while creating contact in difficult topics. And the limits are very individual for everyone. While creating and editing content, I always ask myself, does it offend anyone? Does it not cause negative emotions to the loved ones, the relatives of the people that we are talking about? Do we speak respectfully about such things? Do we not seek to extract, I don't know, some fact just to make the story popular? And the responsibility for what gets to be published lies not only with the employee who publishes, who presses the button publish, but also with the entire museum. And the people who help to collect the material for the content are historians who worked on these difficult topics for many, many years. And of course, they know them the best. So the digital pieces, we can call it, that we publish are created in collaboration with historians. And it's very important to make the content as accurate as possible. Let's see. So this is a brief look at the content that we share online. And now I will quickly review what we do inside and outside the museum itself. So from time to time, we create or educate our educational activities. And one of the newest ones that we have at the museum is called Romani Bacht, the Roma history and culture. So as you can probably understand, during the Holocaust, there was not only Jewish people who were murdered, the Roma people as well. And during this activity, we try to talk about it, but not only the fact that it happened, but also we try to educate people about the culture, the traditions of the Roma minority in Lithuania. And what is a way to uh, make younger people to get interested in this topic? So this educational activity consists of a quiz type game, we can say. So there are 4 groups of people. Each group gets a small box that you can see in my photo, and each box has 4 buttons with letters A, B, C, D. On the board, uh, they get they see a photo, they uh, they get like a video, or they get a simple question with 4 answers, and they have to press the button for the correct answer. So it's an interesting way for them to get interested in the topic and to learn. What else we do is, in our exhibitions we have a game. Again, we can call it a game that actually talks about the period where the diplomats who worked in Kaunas during the war, they were signing visas or similar documents to the people who wanted to leave the country and save themselves. So, for example, like a family of Jews would come up to a diplomat and they would ask for a visa to Japan, for example, so that they could leave the country and save themselves. And this is really what was happening here in Kaunas. And the main point of this game that we have is that a person can sit on a chair, which is in yellow. Yellow is a color of hope. This is why we chose it. And when the person sits on the chair, on the diplomat's chair, he or she can grab a pen, and then on the screen, they can see people coming up to them and asking for help. Like, please, can you sign me a visa? I want to escape from here, and so on. So each person who plays that game has to sign the documents with their hands, with a pen, correctly in order to save their lives. And after signing those documents, the game says if you signed correctly or no, and then the game shows what happens. Like it shows the fate, the destiny of those people. So why this game is important? Because it shows to younger to the younger ones that your decisions can determine the fate of another person. So you you have to feel attentive to the topic. And sometimes, as I said, we leave the museum, and in the photo you can see like a month ago we attended the culture fair in Kaunas, and we brought not only stories, but also we brought real exhibits, and some of the exhibits could be touched. So we did this again uh, to reach a wider audience in the center of Kaunas, and also to bring the museum, bring the history closer to people. Of course, at the museum, we do commemorations. So we have the dates that we commemorate, but during those commemorations, we not only remember the people that we lost, but we also um, make an opportunity for visitors to come to the museum for free, of course. And sometimes we even do free guided tours, specifically dedicated to the topic for the day that we are commemorating. So again, we are doing this to make opportunities for people to come and learn from the exhibitions or the tours. And another thing that we sometimes do is various projects. And the project that you can see in the photo happened a few years ago, in 2022. The project was called Ece Homo, Those Who Stayed. And during the project, it's actually an international project, and to Lithuania, we brought two artists. So one artist who was called Bruce Clark, he's an artist of sculpture and painting, and another artist is Tebira Masike. He's a choreographer and butoh dancer. So what we did during the project, we uh, made an opportunity for younger people to come to their workshops for free and to express history through arts. So the ones that went to the workshop with Bruce, they learned of ways of expressing history through sculpture and painting, and others went to butoh dance workshop. And as you can see from the photo, even after that, they were able to share what they learned with the public. So it's another way of including younger people to be a part of creating history, talking about history. As I mentioned a little earlier, sometimes we jump on trains even. What I mean by that, this is our most recent project that is still going on, and it's called Turn Off Disinformation, Turn On Critical Thinking. So what we decided to do is we got an idea of bringing the discussions about disinformation to morning and evening trains, where the majority of people traveling are people coming to or from work, universities, schools. So we sat on the trains between, like traveling between different cities of Lithuania, and with professionals, we talked about how people can um, distinguish this disinformation and what to do to check, like if you hear some kind of a fact, what you need to do to understand if it's true or not. So this is what we did. And oh, let's see. Okay, so just a few last minutes. And from what I want to say is that from all the things that I discussed that we do inside, outside the museum, and also on our social media, we aim to keep memory alive. We want to encourage informed and compassionate discussion. We also want to remind visitors that history is not only about the past, but it's also like a warning and a guide for future. And yes, the Ninth Fort is a difficult place, but it's also a place of truth, remembrance, and responsibility. And we invite people not only to learn what happened, but also to understand why it matters today. And regarding our content online that we do, I can say that the best way is to, as I mentioned, experiment, try to look for new forms, but I know that it's always easier to create something sensational, something false that could spread quickly, get popular very quickly, and gather a huge audience, but mm, it's not a way. I think that if you constantly create truthful, accurate content, you'll grow your audience slowly, but it will eventually find you. And here on the side, you can find our social media accounts, Facebook and Instagram. These are the main ones that we use. So if you, for example, got interested about our content that we create, you can check it out by yourselves. Or also if you have any questions that you want to ask in private, also you can contact us through those accounts. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask at the moment, I'm here for you to answer. So thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, thank you, Carolina, so much. So, if there's anyone who would like to ask a question or maybe just write a question in the chat, we have some few minutes left for that. Um, yeah, and if not, as I see, yeah. So yeah, thank you so much, Carolina. Uh, yeah, yeah, I agree with Lola. I think, yeah, thank you so much for your great presentation. And I think it was, even though I know about this museum, but I think even I get to know little new parts. So I guess other people got to know even more about that. So, and also I would really love to thank all of you who was being with us in this journey of this webinar series. Yeah, and we hope that you gain valuable insights and took something meaningful from like each seminar that you participated. And we also looking forward seeing you again in our future events. And also, before you go, please don't forget to fill out in the attendance and feedback forms that I just put it in the chat. So it helps us to grow and understand your needs and what did you like and what we should approve. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Carolina. Thank you, everybody. And see you soon, I guess.